Welcome to my channel. I know there's a lot of new subscribers from Instagram and TikTok, so I just want to say thank you so much for subscribing. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I was able to DIY this 1992 Prada design from their fall winter fashion show. The beautiful Yasmin Gouari was wearing it and I was just obsessed right when I saw it, and I was like, I need to recreate this. So I recreated it using a knit metallic fabric. I made a crappy Walmart version of the dress literally just for fun, and I uploaded a video of it on TikTok and Instagram, and you guys really seemed to like it and wanted a tutorial. So I wanted to challenge myself and do something a little more similar to the original, and so I picked up a non-stretchy 100% polyester fabric from Joann's in the color white like the original. So when I started making the dress with the white fabric, I realized that it was going to be a completely different process than with the stretchy fabric, because for this one I didn't have to put any zippers and I basically just made it fit my body, and I was able to slip it on and off over my head. I even attached the straps here. Everything is intact and one piece. But with the non-stretchy fabric, obviously it's harder to get things to fit onto your body, and you need to figure out a way for it to fit you and for you to be able to slip it on and off if you don't want to add any zippers. Okay, so here is the dress that I made for the purpose of this tutorial. In contrast to the black one, I actually made this one a two-piece. It has detachable straps, so you can actually wear the top by itself and the skirt by itself if you want to. If you guys are inexperienced and you don't want to attach zippers to this project, I would recommend that you work with a knit fabric. That way you can get something that fits more to your body and you don't have any problems slipping it on and off. But if you are more experienced, I would recommend that you add a detachable zipper to the back and possibly a zipper to the skirt so that you can get something that fits better. And yeah, that is all I have to say. I'm sorry for rambling on. Let's get into the tutorial. For this project, you guys are going to need fabric and paper scissors, a ruler, a straight and curve to make patterns, a pencil, seam ripper, fabric chalk, pattern paper. I got mine at Walmart. It's packing paper and it was only $5. So if you guys are looking for some, I definitely recommend 2 yards of polyester or knit fabric, 1.5 yards of lining, the same color as your fabric, an iron, a tape measure, sew on snaps, thread that matches your fabric, and of course a sewing machine. To start off, you guys are going to need 3 measurements to make the skirt. You're going to have to measure your waist, your hip, and the length of the skirt. I measured myself a bit below my belly button, about 2 centimeters, just because since I wasn't putting a zipper on the skirt, I wanted to make sure that it would go past my shoulders when I slipped it on. I also made sure to measure the widest part of my hips. And for the length, I used my other leg to hold down the tape measure on the floor, and that's how I measured it. My waist measurement came out to 31.5, my hip came out to 35, and my length came out to 38.5. So after you take your own measurements, you're going to want to add about 2 inches seam allowance to each measurement. After adding 2 inches, I ended up with 33.5 for my waist, 37 for my hip, and 40.5 for my length. After doing that, you're going to want to take the waist measurement and the hip measurement and divide each one by 2. This is so that you get the exact measurement for the front and back of the skirt. Okay, so here I laid out my pattern paper and I measured my waist measurement 16.75 inches across. I then measured 8 inches down from my waistline to the hip. And then I marked the width of my hip, which is 18.5. I then used my curved ruler and drew a line from my waist to my hip. After that, I marked the length of my skirt, which was 40.5. You guys can't see this because the frame is too small. Then I extended the line from my hip all the way to the bottom, gradually making the line wider and wider as we approached the bottom of the skirt. After that, I marked about 2 inches on the waistline just because I wanted to get that little triangle curve that I saw on the original dress. After that, I cut out my pattern, but I made sure to leave one whole side as is, just because I wanted to fold it over and make sure that both sides were exactly the same, and you will see what I mean in the next clip. And here I just lined up both sides. Here I took my 1.5 yards of lining and folded it in half and pinned down the pattern. After removing the pattern, I then pinned down the two side edges of the fabric, leaving the top and bottom opened. After that, I took my polyester, ironed it, and repeated the same exact process. After you're done, you're going to end up with two identical skirts. You're going to flip them inside out and lay them down so that they face each other. Then you're going to take the two top panels and pin them together. When you're done with the front side, you should have a hole in the middle, and you're going to repeat the same process with the two back panels. Instead of pinning along the triangle curve, you're going to want to pin a straight line instead. Then sew it all down, making sure that you're only sewing the two back panels and the two front panels. Just make sure that you don't sew it shut. When you're done, you should be able to slide your hand through the fabric and pull the polyester over the lining like so. Then I just ironed over the seam to make sure that it didn't look lumpy. For the hem, I flipped the skirt inside out so that the lining was up, and I folded about an inch from the bottom and pinned it down and sewed. Okay, so now we're moving on to the top. I used a pattern that I used for the first time that I recreated this dress. I basically just drew a trapezoid in the shape that I wanted and made sure that it covered all the areas that I wanted to cover. Here I used the same pattern and drew about an inch border around the pattern, just because the first time that I recreated it, I felt that the bra could have been a little wider, so that is what I did. If you'd like the exact measurements that I use, here is an image of the exact pattern that I made. Okay, so for the back piece, it gets a little tricky. First thing you're going to want to do is draw a vertical line on your pattern paper measuring about 5.5 inches. Mark the midpoint on that line and draw a horizontal line measuring about 20 centimeters. This is the measurement that I use for myself, but you might want to measure your back just to make sure that it fits. It's better for it to be longer than shorter, because you can always go back and fix it. Next, I used my curved ruler and I connected the vertical and horizontal lines. Next, I drew a line measuring 5.5 inches from the horizontal line on both sides. Next, I used my curved ruler to connect both 5.5-inch lines back to the center vertical line. Next, I took the rest of the polyester fabric, folded it in half, and pinned down the back pattern. I did the same with the bra pattern, however, I folded over the fabric so that there was 4 layers so that I would only have to cut it once. Next, I did the straps. I cut out a rectangle measuring about 20 inches by 4 inches, and I divided that piece into 4 straps measuring 1 inch each. To make the straps, I folded in each edge to the middle and folded that in half. After that, I took the 2 panels for the back side and I sewed down the top and bottom, leaving the sides open. And I flipped it right side out. When I sewed down the bra and attached the straps, I accidentally forgot to press record, but here is a small clip from my last video. I used the same technique to attach the straps. The only difference is instead of leaving the bottom side open, I actually sewed down all edges except for the side. I then went on to iron down the seam. And I did the same with the back piece. After that, I attached the 2 trapezoids to the back piece. And then I sewed that down with a 2-inch seam allowance. So originally I wanted to attach a zipper in the middle of the back piece, however I couldn't find a detachable zipper anywhere, so I ended up cutting the fabric and sewed it down about 3 inches in. Keep in mind when you're doing this that you're gonna have to slide this over your head, so make sure that it's not too tight but it's also not too loose. And this is how it looked when I sewed down the 2 edges. And then I just cut off the excess fabric. If you have a serger, this is where you would use your serger, but I don't have one, so I just cut it off. After that, I attached the 2 trapezoid using my needle and thread. I turned it inside out, and I basically just sewed the 2 back panels, making sure that I didn't show the thread through the front. I then attached both straps to the back center piece. I would recommend you try this on and have someone mark where you want the straps just to make sure that they fit you. I then took my sew-on snaps that I got at Joann's, and we are going to use these to attach the straps to the skirt. I took the top pointy piece and attached it to the strap using a needle and thread. And I did the exact same thing with the other strap. Then took the 2 bottom pieces of the sew-on snaps and sewed them down side by side on the point of the triangle curve on the skirt. Make sure that when you're sewing it down, you're only piercing the lining and not the polyester on the other side, because we don't want the thread to show from the front. And that concludes the tutorial, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys decide to recreate it, please tag me. I really want to see how it turns out. I hope this tutorial helped. I might have done a few things incorrectly and I could have done a lot of things differently, but I am a beginner and I'm still learning. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching till the end of the video. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!